Hello, hello there, and welcome to today's show. I'm Karin, your host, and I am your health coach, your breast cancer thriver, and I specialize in helping you to learn the art of building habits that withstand the roller coaster of life, that withstand fatigue and stress and even chocolate cravings. Okay, so welcome, come on in, because today we are talking about something that not many people even know exists. And this was a game changer for me in my recovery, in the basis of building my coaching programs, so many things. So I'm so glad that you're here, and I see many of you popping on live. I'm so happy. Um, Pop your name in. Let me know that you're here. Say hi. I want to make this interactive for you. At the top of this video, you will see where it says allow StreamYard to see your name if you're watching live. Literally, if you hit that, then I can see your name and I can have a conversation with you. Otherwise, what pops up is either Facebook user or YouTube user or wherever you're watching this. So if you allow StreamYard to just see your name, then I can see exactly who it is. I see somebody's on here from the Netherlands. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to see you guys popping in. Thank you for being here, and thank you for making this a priority for you. I think you're going to find it mind-blowing, the same it was for me. So let me know that you're here and share with me your ahas as we go through today. So you may not have realized that something like the cancer personality profile even exists. I didn't, that's for sure. Didn't at all. And I want to make something super, super clear before we go into today. Okay? Is that you did not cause your cancer diagnosis. Okay? Please keep that in your head. What you're going to be learning today is data. That's all it is. Okay, so we're not judging ourselves or shaming or blaming ourselves for things we've done or not done. All right, so you can let that pressure off yourself right now. And know that you did not cause your cancer. We're using this information as data to change how we look at our recovery and how we look at post breast cancer wellness, right? How are we going to stay healthy? Because it's so much more than the food we eat and how we move our body. And this is what people aren't talking about. So before we dive in, I see that somebody's saying it doesn't say anything at the top of the video. In the blurb, either on top of the video or below the video, it should have, unless StreamYard has, perhaps changed its format, it should have a little blurb that just says allow StreamYard to access your Facebook profile or your name. It's just your name. It does not access your profile, your contacts, your pictures, anything like that. I did a lot of research on that. So just your name. I promise, just your name. I did a lot of research because I'm all about transparency. I'm all about honesty. And just like I respect, if you sign up for anything from me, any of my free guides or anything, then it just, I never sell or share your information, and I want to make sure that all of our stuff is private. So please know that. Hey, Martha, I'm so glad you're here. You're going to love this today. Okay. All right. So let's dive in. So I know that you did not cause your cancer, right? Because I know that you didn't choose to have any of these personality traits, just like me. Most of them are simply how you learn to just be in your life today, right? With the influences from your family, your friends, culture, teachers, coaches, and anyone that played a role in your childhood. This is going to become even more obvious when I share what the traits are. But first, if you don't mind, I'd love to share with you how I became aware of this little talked about resource, right? Because like most of us, and let me know if this was you, drop a yes in the chat if this was you. When I received a cancer diagnosis, I wondered why. Did you wonder why? Put yes in the chat if you did. You see, if we just met, what you probably don't know about me is that I have always focused on being healthy. Hi, Leslie from California. In fact, I didn't even fit into my family growing up because I thought so differently about taking care of myself. I've always been interested in preventative health care. The rest of my family, they were smokers, they drank heavily, and that was never my jam. And they judged me for my choices. Okay. Now, after becoming an integrative nutrition health coach back in 2013, so over 11 years ago, prevention of serious diseases became even more important to me. Right? Even more important. As I learned more, it became even more important. As well as sharing shortcuts for what I've learned through very tedious research with others like you, so that you don't need to spend hours scouring the internet. That is always my goal, especially now. I know it's overwhelming. I know it's confusing. Hi, Kathy from Adelaide, Australia. We've got an international group here. I love it. We've got Australia. We've got the US. Martha's in Texas. We've got the Netherlands. I love it because this information is global, guys. It's global. So please make sure that you're sharing this video and this information with others that you know. Okay. So you can imagine, right, as this person who has spent their entire life on trying to be healthy, that I was absolutely gobsmacked when I got this diagnosis. That is, until I learned two things. After genetic testing, I discovered that I carry the BRCA2 genetic mutation, making me at very high risk for cancer. That makes me at an 87% risk of getting breast cancer. Although the only person in my family that had had breast cancer prior to me was my paternal grandmother. But there was a lot of family history, and I'm really, really glad that my genetic counselor decided to do this test. Okay. So, as I said, this made me predisposed to breast cancer. But why? I was 52 years old, and I see somebody else has it too. 52 years old when I was diagnosed, it changed my question from why did I get breast cancer to why now, right? Why now? So I found myself asking, and I'm going to invite you to do the same thing. What had happened in my life and what was different from usual? And as you ask yourself this same question, please be kind to yourself, right? It's important that we ask with curiosity instead of judgment. And that's exactly what I did. So what had happened for me 2 years prior to my diagnosis, 1 year prior to my diagnosis, was I went through a large chunk of trauma. I'll go into that a little bit more later on, not too much. But that then became really obvious that that was part of what had happened. And then number two, right? So first it was that diagnosis. Number two was then I went off down the Google rabbit hole, which you've likely gone off down to. And I found the incredible life-changing work of Dr. W. Douglas Brody. Dr. W. Douglas Brody is an integrative cancer therapist, or I should say was. And after 30 years of working with cancer patients on a daily basis, he observed certain personality traits that his patients had in common. Who knew, right? I didn't. So I'm going to go through these 7 traits with you. And I'm going to invite you to be honest with yourself. And I even get your fingers out because I'd love to know how many of them you can relate to. I was at one point in my life all 7. Being honest with you, right? But remember, if some of them resonate with you, it's great. It does not mean that it caused your cancer. Instead, I'm going to invite you to be grateful for discovering some of the emotional triggers that may have led you and I down this path. Because once we understand what led us to a place or a health challenge, the better equipped we are for a healthier future and potentially lowering our risk of recurrence, right? It makes sense. Makes sense. This is why it's such a huge part of all of my get your lips straight here, Karin, of all of my coaching programs. Okay, so let's dive in. These are the Cancer personality traits according to Dr. W. Douglas Brody. And if you want to learn more about this, I've got more on my website, okay, at karendelmaestro.com/blog. So let's take a look at these. These are 7. And like I said, I'm going to invite you to get your fingers out and start counting. Because I would like to know that I'm not the only one out there that went through this. Number 1 is being highly conscientious, caring, dutiful, responsible, hardworking, and usually above average intelligence. Okay. Now, I was always the good girl. I always followed the rules. In fact, I was afraid not to. I've always been the one that cares for everybody else, the one that goes above and beyond. This was always part of my personality, and perhaps it's yours too. Often what I found is this might look like us not taking sick days, no matter how sick we are, right? Dropping everything that we have on our agenda to take care of everybody else. So it might look something like that. Number 2, exhibits a strong tendency towards carrying other people's burdens and towards taking on extra obligations and often worrying for others. Can you relate to that? Make sure your fingers are going here. This is number 2. I always used to worry. And I think, first of all, let me set a caveat here, because I think if we've got any moms on here, it goes without saying, right? We're always going to worry for our kids. But then who else do we worry about? We worry about our parents. We might worry about our friends. We might worry about somebody that we're working with, a significant other, our pets, right? And worrying often about things or people that we cannot control is often the thing. Okay. Number 3, having a deep-seated need to make others happy. So being a people pleaser with a great need for approval. By the way, people pleasers are people, and like I said, this used to be me too, right? So people pleasers tend to start out in life as parent pleasers, right? Always going the extra mile, trying to get that glimmer of validation from our parents, often not getting it. But then in life, we go out and we might even be saying to ourselves, I'll be happy as long as everybody else is happy. Right? I used to say that too. Okay. But what this does is it puts ourselves on the back burner. We're not making ourselves a priority. Our focus in life becomes everybody else. Okay. Number 4, often lacking closeness with one or both parents, which can sometimes later in life result in a lack of closeness with our spouse or others who would normally be close. It could be other family members who are normally close. Number 5, harbors long suppressed toxic emotions such as anger, resentment, and or hostility. The cancer susceptible individual typically internalizes such emotions and has great difficulty expressing them. Now, I don't know about you. I grew up in the UK very much in the era where it was still very much children will be seen and not heard. I was never asked, Karin, how do you feel or what do you want? Never. So I never learned that, right? Which is one of the reasons why we can't blame ourselves for this. These were just things that were part of our upbringing that we never learned. And so if you tend to be somebody that just sucks it up, pushes it down, and gets on with it, this is something to be mindful of, right? And the cool thing about all of this is we can unlearn all of these. And I'm going to share a little bit about that later on here today. Okay. So we can unlearn. I have unlearned. I've taught people in my group coaching program, Thrivership School, how to unlearn these things. So don't worry about that. It's just becoming aware that these are even part of what can be affecting our risk, right? So number 6, reacts adversely to stress and often becomes unable to cope adequately with such stress. If you see me looking forth here, I understand I've got some notes because these are Dr. Brody's words, and I want to make sure that I am staying true to his words here. So if you see me kind of glancing back and forth, that's why. So becoming unable to cope adequately with such stress. Usually, and this is a big one, big one. And this, I can tell you, in 98% of the women that I've spoken to, and I've spoken to hundreds of breast cancer survivors, 98% of them, this was a factor for them. Usually experiences an especially damaging event, so traumatic time, about 2 years before the onset of detectable cancer. The patient is not able to cope with this traumatic event or series of events, which often comes as the last straw on top of years of suppressed reactions to stress. Okay, think about that. Is that relatable for you? We're not judging, we're being curious, and we're observing. But I'm going to ask in a little bit if you've had any ahas here. And number 7, the final one in Dr. Brody's personality profile, has an inability to resolve deep-seated emotional problems and conflicts. Usually beginning in childhood, right? Often even being unaware of their presence because we've learned to suck it up, push it down, and ignore it, right? Very often this is what happens. So typical of the cancer susceptible personality, as noted above, is the long-standing tendency to suppress toxic emotions, especially anger. Usually beginning in childhood, this individual is held in their hostility and other emotions that society might consider unacceptable or inappropriate, or things we don't share. Right? Now, take a breath, because I know it's a lot. Give yourself a big hug. I'm sending you one too. Please know, again, that you did not cause your cancer. And if you'll allow me, I can help you to unlearn these traits the exactly same way that I have, so that you can live your healthiest future possible. Okay, so that's what we're going to dive into next. So before we do, I would love to know in the comments, did you have any ahas there? Any light bulb moments where you went, oh my gosh, Karin, you're describing me to a T. If anybody would like to share their number out of those 7, drop it in there. Oh my God, somebody's sharing, oh my gosh. Oh, not sure of intelligence. Don't sell yourself short there. But husband left after 30 years, heavy alcohol to cope, parents' favorite sister. Yes, I do blame myself. Please don't. Please do not blame yourself. Okay? And I'll tell you why. You did not know. You did not know that these were all related to cancer. You didn't know that. I mean, look at what you've been through. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay? Now, there are some studies right now through German New Medicine that are linking trauma and all of these things and all of these suppressed emotions very much to how our body biologically shifts during these times. Okay. So this is why in this world where we see about what to eat and how to move our body, and 100% as a health coach, and I'm so on board with that. But to be honest with you, this for me is where we get to really make lifelong shifts and start going about our day differently. It really is. And I can see Martha says she has all 7. Yeah. Martha, just let me know in the chat, because Martha is one of our members in Thrivership School. Do you feel like you recognize these traits more because of being in there, and that you've started the journey to unlearning them? Let me know in the chat. I have no idea what Martha's going to say, by the way. She could say, Karin, no, not yet. I'm asking her on the fly, putting you on the spot, Martha. So, absolutely. Good. I was hoping you would say that, but I didn't know for sure, right? So when I first read this list, it was like seeing my name in flashing neon lights. It was like, oh my gosh, this is me to a T, because I checked off every single one of these at one point in my life. Growing up, I followed the rules. I was responsible. I was the one that in my group of friends would make sure that all of my friends got home safe. You know, those teenage years where everybody's out drinking and stuff. And remember, in the UK, the drinking age is 18. So, but I never drank. I never smoked. I never indulged in pot or any of the other things that they may have been doing around that time. I was the responsible one that made sure that all of my friends got home safe. I was hardworking. From the age of 13, I had a job, at least one, and that note didn't change. And I was always looking for that glimmer of validation from my parents. It never came. And no matter how hard I tried, I never felt good enough. I spent decades, like well into my 40s, compromising myself, trying to fit in, trying to be a pretzel, right? Wanting everyone to like me, never saying no, because I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, apologizing when things weren't even my fault, like a scene from Monty Python where somebody bumps into me and I'm the one to say, sorry. Do you do that? If somebody bumps into you, do you say sorry? Are you like me? It's so built in. And I just sucked it all up, kept it bottled away inside, never expressing how I felt. No matter how resentful, angry, stressed out, or exhausted I was, I just kept on pushing myself to be there for everyone else. Because I honestly thought in my soul that if I worked hard enough, and if I tried hard enough to make everybody else happy, that I would feel happy. It didn't work. And so I'm wondering if you, like me, had that little hole, that void, that yearning to really feel like you belong. I had that. I used to have that, and I don't anymore. Now, you can see that all of the things I've just described are on that Cancer personality list. And as you're all sharing here in the chat, and I see it, and if you're catching the replay, please don't stop. Let us know. These are feeling familiar to you too. Somebody else here is sharing that from their childhood until now at 53, they've been through a lot and they recognize themselves in all 7 numbers. Yeah. There's a reason I'm sharing this with you guys, is because this connected so many dots for me. Now, before you go off down your own Google rabbit hole asking, does stress cause cancer? Allow me to save you some time, my favorite thing to do. The answer you'll find is no. Although I could argue, right, that the effect that stress has on our body and how we cope with stress, like somebody was sharing alcohol, ice cream, chocolate. In my case, it could be sour cream and onion potato chips, right? But those, how we cope with that stress can certainly increase inflammation in our body, and therefore our risk of cancer can go up because inflammation is the root cause of all serious disease. That's a conversation for another day. But as Dr. Brody clearly states, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, or our inability to cope and the negative coping mechanisms that we choose that gets us into trouble. And a cancer diagnosis can be as much as 2 years following these traumatic events. So when I looked back, right, as I shared before, when I looked back on those previous 2 years, just 1 week following our amazing Caribbean wedding in August of 2016, I was diagnosed with Zika virus, compromising my immune system, and shortly thereafter, I got shingles. Nasty, 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 nasty. 6 months later, back-to-back emergency crises, including sitting by my mom's bedside as she passed away. My brother almost died the day after her funeral, and just 2 weeks after that, my hubby was badly injured in a serious motorcycle accident. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the moving pieces with those, right? Because safe to say it's a lot. But my ability to cope with this level of stress was definitely compromised. I was 100% in survival mode. Perhaps you can relate to that, right? Where you just feel like you're barely hanging on by a thread. Just trying to get up each day and continue. That's where I was. And for me, it felt like the check engine light on my car was constantly on. And when we happen to our car, right, we take care of it as soon as possible. But somehow, it wasn't so easy to be able to take care of myself during this super challenging time. And I think you can relate. So getting diagnosed a year later with breast cancer and the BRCA2 genetic mutation was a huge aha for me, especially after discovering the work of Dr. Brody. And as I've invited you today, I was super careful not to blame or shame myself for anything I'd previously done or not done, right? Often it's what we haven't done that we're blaming ourselves for. But I became more aware and started to focus on taking even better care of myself. Not just physically, but my mind, my body, and my spirit. And this is what I call self-care. And it might look a bit different than you might think, right? It's manis and pedis are great, massages, but I'm not talking about luxurious self-care. For me, self-care is the conscious act you take, not just think about, but take, to promote your own physical, emotional, and mental health and well-being. So for me, self-care might look like a mindful cup of tea, setting more realistic expectations of myself, depending on where I am, right? Instead of being the hardworking one, always pushing, taking a step back, allowing my body to heal, creating a more respectful relationship with my body, like listening to it. It might also be getting outside in nature more, saying no to something that drains me, right? There's the anti-people pleasing, is learning to say no. Very popular topic inside Thrivership School. And it could be just talking to a therapist or a coach or a really good non-judgmental friend, right? We want to make sure that we've got those people who really get what we're going through. So because of this shift in my mindset, right, self-care started to impact every aspect of my life. And you can do this too. Like what I'm talking about is nothing special. It's really shifting an awareness and a mindset. So I used to wonder, right, after big traumas, I used to wonder, who am I now? Who am I now? I would feel drained trying to be who everybody else thought I should be. Do you ever feel like that? But by focusing on myself in a way that I never had before, I now know exactly who I am at this stage in my life. Now, what that does is it stops me from feeling exhausted. It stops me from the people pleasing. It stops me from pushing myself when I don't have the energy. And it saves so much of that mental spinning, right? I never used to speak up for myself. Never, right? I learned not to. But I now speak authentically. Like I'm showing up here, authentic and honest and raw. And I finally feel that sense of belonging because of how I am showing up, not because of anybody else. Because I'm no longer trying to fit in, but I'm now embracing who I am. I see Jenny saying she feels kind of lost and she doesn't know who you are anymore. Yes, Jenny, this is so common, so common. But we can learn that. Okay, we can learn that. In fact, I always remember one of our other Thrivership School members, Lynn. Our first module inside my coaching program, Thrivership School, is Who Am I Now? And it's a 90-minute class, 90 minutes. And I always remember Lynn saying that 90 minutes changed her life. Because just knowing that changed everything for her and how she showed up in her life. It's amazing when we know who we are. So one of the ways that it also affected me was I used to critique my body every time I looked in the mirror. Do you do that? Especially, you're like jiggle here, dog ears here, jiggly belly, cellulite, all because of our changes in estrogen levels for most of us after breast cancer. But it's practicing self-care has led to a much kinder and more compassionate relationship with my body. One of gratitude for what my body's actually carried me through. And for the first time in my life, I began loving the skin I was in, no matter my size, my shape, breasts, or flat. And here's a biggie. I no longer stress about things that I can't control. Self-care has given me all of this and more. But I want you to know that there's nothing special about me. There's no S tattooed on my chest. In fact, there's nothing on my chest anymore except footprints where my breasts once lay. And you can have those kind of results too. Okay, you can unlearn those behaviors the same way that I have. Doesn't mean they go away forever, but it means that we catch them quickly and we shift when we know exactly what to do. So I've got a little exercise for you guys if you want to play along. Who's down for it? Who's down for a fun little exercise? Just drop a 1 in the chat if you are. Super quick, super easy. And by exercise, I don't mean moving your body. You can do this wherever you're sitting right now. So I'm going to invite you to imagine your body. Awesome. Great. I'm so happy that you guys came to play today. I love this interaction. Thank you. Lets me know that I'm not alone and I'm not just talking to a computer screen. So I love that. Thank you so much. So I invite you to think of your body as a teapot. Okay. It's the Brit in me coming out, right? And your energy level is the level of tea in that teapot. Now, I'm going to think that most of you are waking up in the morning and your teapot isn't even full, right? You're not waking up, jumping up with energy, bounding around, looking to face the day like you can jump off high mountains. No. Most of us are struggling with our energy after breast cancer, right? So with that now, what I invite you to think about is how many cups do you pour into all day long? And get your fingers going again. How many cups? Take a second and count now. How many teacups do you pour into every day? So I invite you to think about work. How many people do you think about? Not just take care of, but think about, right? Because if thoughts are where our mind goes, our energy flows. That was a quote from Tony Robbins. And so it's things that we think about too. So this involves work, church, friends, family, significant other, kids, grandkids, pets, like on a daily basis. How many teapots are you pouring into? Well, let me know in the chat. Drop your number. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad. Okay, so know that there never is in my circle. Your answer is your answer. It's like your feelings are your feelings. They're for nobody else to judge or critique. That's not how we roll around here. How many teacups are you pouring into all day long? Somebody's saying 2, 6, 6. Seeing some numbers pop up here. Awesome. Quick question. Did you include yourself in the people you take care of? Let me know. We don't think of it, right? We think of, especially when we are on that, relating to a lot of those things on that Cancer personality profile. Most of us thinking about everybody else. Not your fault. It's just the way we learn to grow up. But here's the thing. Self-care, in other words, taking care of yourself, is how we top up our teapot so that we can keep pouring into all of those cups and not have our energy get dried up, and we become, right? What happens when we're completely exhausted and everybody's like wanting a piece of us, and we're in the bathroom yelling, I just need a minute to pee, please. Right? I've been there. I know, but it's true. Right? So if we can top up our teapot, then it means that we can keep taking care of others without becoming angry or bitter or resentful. Because we know, because that personality trait, when we become that way, what happens? We suck that up. We get on with it. And we are not helping ourselves when it comes to lowering our risk of getting sick again. So I hope that you can see by topping up your teapot, right? Then self-care is not about just you, but it's about you too. It's about being on the list too. Think about how many promises you have kept with others, but not yourself. How many times have you said, I'm going to eat healthier, and then let that go by the wayside? How many times have you said, I'm going to go out for a walk 5 times this week, and not kept that promise to yourself? Because we so easily, when we're on that list, drop taking care of ourselves to take care of others. Again, I do not want you to judge yourself. We are using this as data, as really valuable information to look at how we want to live our life moving forward. Now, self-care, like I said, one of the biggest things is we think that we're being selfish, or we might feel guilty for putting ourselves there. But I don't know, like when I first started to think about self-care, it used to feel selfish to me too, right? As somebody that had done everything for everybody else. But when we think about Dr. Brody and his list, I do not believe, and this is from my heart, and it almost makes me cry, for 1 second that it is selfish to be mindful of something that could help lower our risk of breast cancer or its recurrence. That is not selfish, right? Because I know that your loved ones want you here. They want you here. They want to get to live life with you and experience all of these fun things. And so if we take care of ourselves, then we get to do that. We get to have those experiences. So what if you could constantly top up your teapot? Have more tea to pour, right? To share with people you love, your friends, colleagues, for me, even my clients. My clients know that I need to take care of me so that I can show up for all of you. They know that. They have seen me go through some very, very difficult things. They know that I will take care of me before I'm sharing with others. And it's not selfish. And one of the biggest things that I find people say about self-care is that it's time consuming, or we have this misconception, right, that it's time consuming. Like if I don't do an hour of exercise, then it's not worth it. If I don't have a whole healthy meal, then it's not worth it. If I don't do 15 minutes or 30 minutes of meditation, then it's not worth it. We also think it has to be expensive. And here's the thing. In times of stress, when we need to double or triple down on taking care of ourselves with adaptable and flexible routines, self-care is what needs to become your non-negotiable. And so it can't be time-consuming or expensive. It can't be, right? So the answer you get to ask yourself every day is, what do I need today to top up my teapot? And then listen carefully for the answer. Now, I know that sometimes that answer might be just, I need 3 months on a desert island on my own with nobody else to worry about. Right? Have you ever done that? And that's me too. Because I know that that's what you've wanted in the past. And I also know it's not always practical. But you can add in moments throughout your day inviting in that feeling. I mean, imagine just sitting outside for a moment, closing your eyes, and feel free to do this after you've watched this. Close your eyes, feel the breeze. Imagine the waves gently lapping against the shore, the sounds of birds, and allowing a smile to come across your face, and just taking a few mindful breaths. It can be that simple. It can be that simple. And just like I shared before, it can be that mindful cup of tea. It can be setting more realistic expectations for yourself, letting go of these super high standards, because the only person here that you have to please is you, your soul, this person inside you that you haven't even yet met. And she's incredible. She really is. She's incredible, and she's just waiting for you to meet her and start to validate her. Self-care and topping up your teapot is the key to managing stress, right? Staying healthy, bringing more joy into your life, and learning to lower your risk of recurrence in ways that are not often talked about. Okay? If you want to learn more, if you want to reread this or rewatch this, head on over to the blog, karindelmaestro.com/blog, for your recommended best next steps. I always like to give you next steps so that I never leave you hanging, because I hated that feeling when I was done with treatment and wondering what now. So I always do my best to leave you not feeling that way. I always want you to know your best next steps. So head on over to the blog, get your next best steps. Feel free to reach out to me. Here, wherever you're watching this, in the chat, I will be going back and looking at it. But feel free to reach out to me with any questions at all about this or anything that we've talked about today. If you're on live and you have any questions, feel free, pop them in the chat right now. I'm all yours. All yours. Anybody have any questions about what we talked about today, or ahas where you're like, whoa, things that perhaps you didn't realize? Let me know in the chat. This was so big for me, guys. I can't even begin to tell you the impact that learning about this list had on how I viewed myself and how I showed up in my life. And for those of you who are familiar with my coaching, you know that I share the exact steps that I take. You're so welcome, Jenny. Yeah, head on over to the blog and you'll see more information there for sure. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if I can help you in any way, shape, or form. Thank you for being here. And thank you for those that are joining in from Australia and the Netherlands. And I thank you for showing up for you. Right? Somebody said they're feeling much better after hearing from me today. Thank you. You're so welcome. You're welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for showing up, for hanging out with me. This was a long one today, but I really, really hope that you found this invaluable in looking at, okay, where do I go from here? Right? What do I do now? And I want you to know that you are never, ever alone. Once you are in my circle, my little corner of the internet, you are never alone. Okay? You can always reach out to me with any questions. Jenny's from the Netherlands. Thank you for putting that piece together for me. I love that. I love that. What are you, 6 hours ahead, Jenny? I'm thinking the Netherlands is probably 6 or 7 hours ahead from me. What time is it there right now? It's definitely in the evening. Early evening is my guess. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Head on over to the blog, karendelmaestro.com/blog, for more information, to reread this, to rewatch the video. It'll be up there shortly. And if you have any questions, feel free to just reach out to me. I am here for you, to support you, to help you moving forward, to build these habits that withstand the crazy roller coaster that we're all on, right? One of my favorite quotes is by John Kabat-Zinn. The waves of life will keep coming. It's our ability to learn how to surf that makes the difference. I will leave you with that. Okay, so it's 6:17 in the Netherlands from Jenny. Yes, so you're 6 hours ahead, Jenny. Thank you for that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all of you. Have an amazing rest of your day wherever you are. Whoa! It is 1:30 in the morning Adelaide time. Well, thank you for joining and watching, and I hope that you can get some rest and some sleep now. My gosh, I thought it had to be like so early in the morning for this. So thank you for being here and saying yes to you, and I really hope that this was valuable in how you look at staying healthy from here on forward. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye, guys.